There is a buzz in the Lal Street that market hours for F&O trading could be extended. The NSE, National Stock Exchange, is proposing an evening trading session from 6 to 9 p.m. In fact, they've submitted their proposal to the market regulator SEBI too for an approval. Yash caught up with Sriram Krishnan, the Chief Business Development Officer at NSE, to discuss what exactly the exchange has sought in the proposal. Listen in.
This is something that's come out after a lot of discussions on this subject over the last 9 months. We set up a working committee towards the end of December last year. And after that, we did add many more stakeholders. We wanted to cover every part of the market. So we have spoken with fund managers, we have spoken with brokers and different types of brokers. Within brokers today, you have some who are based on technology, who are like the high frequency type, the low latency seekers. You also have traditional brokers, you have proprietary traders and so on. And of course, not to forget the large retail contribution these days. Correct. So we wanted to speak with every single stakeholder in the entire ecosystem, which is what we did over the last 9 months.
Okay.
And the feedback that came from the various discussions was largely that we should not touch the cash equity segment. We should leave it as such, and it should close by 3:30. Because it's only last year that we went live with the T+1 settlement cycle.
Absolutely.
And obviously there is a bit of hesitancy when it comes to extension of trading hours for cash equities. But on equity derivatives, there was a large consensus which has come about, stating that we should certainly do a session in the evening as a small start. And this is the right thing to do. For us, it's important to do the right thing. And although we have an enabling provision to go all the way up to 11:55 p.m., we felt that after all these discussions, we should put together a proposal and submit it to the regulators for their approval.
Okay. You spoke about one thing, that is, as a start, let's just understand this thing with a small session in the evening. If you could give us some clarity, since you've submitted a basic, blueprint with market regulator SEBI, what could be the duration of this small session, between what time to what time? And hopefully, if that works out for the exchanges, for the larger investor community in that sense, then what's the plan? How do you want to see it eventually grow up?
So the session would be from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. to start with. And the products that we will offer during this time is only index options and futures.
Okay.
And not single stock options and futures.
Okay.
And the way in which we can possibly take this forward is by either extending the timeline from, let's say, 9 p.m. to maybe 11:55 p.m. That's one option. Or we could also add more products during the 6 to 9 p.m. session.
Stock futures could be a possibility, then eventually, of course.
Possible. So we could do either of these two options. Again, we will obviously consult the stakeholders.
Correct.
And be guided by what people want.
Correct.
At the end of the day, we are a market infrastructure institution here to set up all of this stuff and help the society. So what we are trying to do here is to exactly implement what the market wants us to implement.
Okay. You said you've spoken to various stakeholders. You yourself are one stakeholder in this entire ecosystem. 3 important parts to it. How does the exchange benefit? How would the investors benefit? And how would the large brokers benefit if this were to happen in the near future?
See, the exchange is a convergence of the investors, intermediaries, and issuers. How we can, look at this kind of a proposal is to see what it means for an investor, for example. Today, global events that take place tend to have an impact on Indian capital markets too, because the entire globe is interconnected.
Correct.
And we cannot imagine that we are isolated. So if there is a Silicon Valley Bank collapse that happens in the US, it does tend to have an impact on India's capital markets. And these events generally, come to people's attention when the US opens,
Correct.
which is evening hours India, by which time our markets are already closed as of today.
Correct.
That's the space we want to address. That's the feedback that we want to address to start with.
Okay.
We think that the 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. timeline will give the Indian investors a chance to hedge their portfolio risk should such a situation arise.
Correct.
And, obviously we can look at extending the timings, etc., as we go along. Eventually, I think, taking into account what the large, stock exchanges of the globe have done, we should possibly, India as a country should possibly aspire to also offer investors the same sort of timelines. At the moment, we have been only six hours or so, but I think the time has come for us to expand that a bit more.
On one hand, market regulator SEBI talks about how 90% of the traders lose their money in the F&O segment. On the other hand, exchanges talk about extending trading hours for the F&O segment. Both these ideologies, do you think SEBI will find somewhere a logic in your ideology, considering they are talking about, how retail traders should not get into F&O market increasingly?
Well, there are two schools of thought. One, which is that there needs to be an opportunity for an investor to hedge the portfolio risk. The other, which is obviously that investors are now getting carried away and it's becoming more of a speculative activity than just the hedging of the portfolio risk. I cannot, authentically tell you that all the activity in the F&O space today is pure hedging. It's not. And we all know that. And everyone is concerned about the massive surge in the options trading volumes. And therefore, we are running massive campaigns and initiatives to get the investors to become more aware and to understand the downside risks. We are concerned about the findings of this survey, that 9 out of 10 people are losing money. And hence, we are doing everything possible to educate investors and to help in the capacity building.
Okay, that is an important clarification. With that, we'll slip into a short break. When we come back, we'll focus on markets and a lot of stocks which are moving around in trade. Stay tuned.